So, right.
You will be able to. That's why I'm doing it on 3. So you'll be able to share it from Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, either one. All right, so we're
Cool.
live. Awesome.
Hello, hello, hello.
So hey. So I am Lorenda Barber. Um that's one of my names. And so I'm so excited. I really am. I have not. I can send this out. I mean, I sent out a commercial, but either way it goes, this is now once we're recording, so you'll be able to share this on your own social media platforms. But I'm excited today. So hello to everyone, anyone that's looking, anyone that's listening. I am your girl Lorenda B. And I'm so excited because I am coming in a different platform, something I've done before, but this makes me excited because I get to do a live interview with my very own good, dear childhood friend. Nobody, no one, none less other than my own friend, Tasha Denese Bellamy. I'm
But
so
my
excited,
whole
Tasha.
name.
Welcome to this platform. This is exciting.
Thank
She is not
you.
the most public person, but she can't hide no more because she's now an author of a book, and not just any book, but this is her book. It is her personal book. It's a book about her personal life. It is her story. And Tasha, I'm so glad that you wrote the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me just give you a moment on the floor just to introduce yourself, whatever you want to say before we get into this array of questions in regards to the book. And plus, please tell the people they can see behind me the book. But if you'll show them your book, and if you'll, if you want to talk or whatever you want to
Of
say,
course.
awesome.
Of
Okay.
course. So my name is Tasha Denise. Last name is Bellamy. I am the author of Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had. It is my real life story about my personal childhood trauma and just the things that I went through in life as a young adult as well. Um, and yeah, I think the questions that you have may answer a lot of questions that people may have. So I'll let that take place. Um, and I guess I like to say that people that are joining us, if I know you may have questions and may have things that you want to say or express about the book. If you could just hold that until the end, until we're done with our interview discussion, I would greatly appreciate that.
Awesome. Oh, are you done?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
For now. For now.
All right. So, again, to you all, this is my friend Tasha Bellamy, Tasha Denise Bellamy. She, as she said, she wrote this amazing book. Not a hard to read book, very easy to read. But when I tell you, it is so chock full of a real story. It is better than any modern day Lifetime movie. And I'm a
Oh,
Lifetime movie kind of girl. But when I tell you, this book has it all. It really, literally has it all, Tasha. Some of the things that I read,
I
by
experienced it
thinking that
all.
I knew you, and I realized one, we become really good at wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
And masks. I mean,
Absolutely.
we a lot of times we talk as adults like don't wear masks, but sometimes in the game of survival, you
Right.
have to wear the mask just so you can get by day to day, right?
Right. And
So,
sometimes you don't realize you're wearing that mask yourself.
ooh, okay. Ooh, now you might have to speak on that part. You might have to speak on that part. As she said, as you guys come in, please feel free to invite someone else into this particular interview. You are welcome to address any of your questions in the comments. And when and if we have time at the latter part of this interview or discussion, I will do my very best to address them. We may very well cover them. Hi, Lydia. Thank you so much for joining. Lydia, I'm so glad that you
Thank you,
came.
Lydia.
And I think that you will. I know that you've heard me read some parts of the book But I think, as a young woman yourself, you may gain a lot from what you hear today. If you have any questions as you're listening, please feel free to type that in, and I will try to make it my business to get her, make sure that she gets the question. And I believe she'll be able to see your questions as well. So if you, when you guys come in the room, if you do go on and say hi, if I catch you, I'll say hi back, we'll say hi back. If not, we'll try to address any questions at the end. And of course, you can always catch the replay. I got a feeling once this is done, there's going to be a lot of replay. Okay, I got a feeling.
And I'll come back, you know, in within the next couple of days and answer any questions that people put in the chat that we're not able to get to. So
That's real good. All right. So, with no further ado, I want to get right into these questions. The first question I know that you showed the book. Y'all see the cover of the book behind me. Let me tell you, first off, this book has one of the most welcoming feels to it. The book is so velvet. It is so velvet. It's so easy to receive. And so when she and I talked about it, because that stands out to me, is just being able to touch this book in the way it feels. It makes me want to hold it and touch it and open it. And I felt comfortable going into it, even though I was in some parts really taken aback, because I just wasn't ready for all that I read. But I couldn't put the book down, Tasha. I could not put it back down. I have read this book, I promise you, maybe now 7 times. It is an easy read. I read it from cover to cover, but there are some parts that I really get stuck on. And so I just want you guys to take the time. This is not just about supporting her in the financial part. This is a story of a young woman's real life, real tragedy, real struggles, and her real survival. And there's someone out there, I know it and I believe it. There's someone out there that will be able to read her story and gain something, or they'll know someone like her in the story and they'll be able to share some information or give them some hope that you can make it out. Okay. So I want to ask you about the first thing I want to ask you is about the title of this book. That's what caught me. I mean, when you told me this title, I was like, because I first saw drug addiction and I'm like, huh? But then it says, overcoming the drug addiction I never had. When I tell you that is a hands down title, I see that as a Tyler Perry capture, because that is a capturing title right there. Tyler, if you listening, or anybody that is associated with Mr. Perry, let him know his next story or play is already in the making for him. All he got to do is call my friend up, and she's ready.
Yes, I'm ready.
Tell me about the title of this book, Tasha.
So, so the title was basically inspired by a couple of things, right? One, from my mother, you know, being a drug addict. My mother, she experimented with a few different drugs, but her drug of choice was cocaine. And back then, specifically crack cocaine. I personally never, you know, used drugs of any kind.
Right.
But because of the devastation that her addiction caused to our family, yes, and specifically the devastation that it caused to me, you know, the pain, the chaos, the abuse, you know, just everything that came with that, with my mother's addiction, I had to heal from that. I had to overcome that. So in essence, that's where the title came from. You know, I had to overcome my mother's addiction.
Wow, that's the idea of taking on that. And I don't think a lot of people, well, I won't say that people don't understand, but I can tell you what, it was some eye-opening knowledge to me, because I can remember an experience with a close relative for me, my brother, who was addicted also to crack cocaine back in those days. And his addiction affected us very much too. What, all of his struggles became part of us. So I can understand that. And that title though, that literally, to me, that is the making of, seriously, not just a great book, because it does make for a good book, but it captured me. And I could literally see everything that you experience and you share in the book. I could see it in color, like I could literally envision it. I could feel what you wrote. And so that
Oh,
to me
good.
tells me how good of a writer you are, because I could smell it, I could feel some of it.
Ooh,
So
that is
um,
awesome.
that's why it made me, it was like, I felt so bad. I think I told you, like, I'm so sorry because I didn't know. We were kids, but I didn't know. But I tell you what, I applaud you from the mountaintop for your courage to use this platform of writing to bring yourself closer and closer to the healing point that you need to be at. And that takes a lot. This, because this is candid, open. It is.
Yeah, very much so. It's the raw and real deal. And thank you. I appreciate that. And before we even go any further, I want to say thank you just from the bottom of my heart for even doing this. Like, we've been friends since what, 13, 14 years old. And even though we didn't always maintain communication, our friendship has definitely endured the test of time, and you've been one of my biggest cheerleaders. You've been a huge support. And I love you so much for loving me. I love you so much. And I thank you. I really, really thank you.
Well,
Um,
you don't have to thank me, girl. I feel honored to even be in this position. I know that I'm taking the lowest point, because I really do feel, if this book gets into the right hands, as hard as I know it had to be for you to write, this is a story that has to be told. This is so many girls' secret. This is so many kids' hidden spots that, that's their shame spot. They never want anyone to know. And you're standing on a platform of, I'll take the you're taking the lick for a lot of people. And I like you're saying, thank you for writing it. Thank you for having the courage to write that. Seriously, thank you for that. Now, I do want to ask you, um why did you use your own name instead of like a ghost name, or a pseudo name, so that people won't, because when you tell the truth, it just might wake up some sleeping bears or some monsters that are hiding in closets, because when you start telling your truth, it automatically exposes other people's truth. And sometimes folk don't like that. Now, we're from the South. Folk don't like that, okay, sometimes. So, why did you have the courage to use your own name as opposed to writing under another name or hiding behind a ghost name?
so, and you're right, telling your truth exposes the truth of others as well.
True.
But those aren't my truths to tell. The book is about my truth, what I experienced, what I went through. And, as I mentioned, part of the reason that I wrote the book was out of my frustration. Um, and, I was frustrated, I was angry, I was hurting, and I was just sort of locked in this mental and emotional prison. Um, and I had to release myself from that, And in writing the book, that was part of my release, just coming out of that and not being just mentally held down, barred down any longer. And I couldn't very well tell my truth, tell my story, talk about my experiences, and then hide behind a name that no one knew. I had to say, hey, this is my story and this is me. I couldn't say, hey, this is my story, but I'm going to put Lorenda's name on there. You know what I mean? Like, I had to tell my story and be me. So, but I did think about using a pseudonym. I did, but.
Okay, so I get that. A lot of people. Let me do this. a lot of people do use other names, and I don't know if it's necessarily hiding, but sometimes, just to find that safe space. So that's why I applaud you even louder, because I know the courage it has to take. um we're not from a big metropolitan area, so one could think that they actually know things or feel like they can put names and places to things, especially if they are a part of your truth. I really, really appreciate something you said, though, Tasha. You said this is your truth. So even though it may expose or put the light on someone else's, it's not your truth. You're not telling their truth. You're telling your truth. And I like that, because what you're doing is you're keeping the main thing the main thing. So it might be safe for me to say that this isn't written from an area in your heart of bitterness, or I'm gonna get you back, or with a heart full of malice. Is it fair for me to say that?
Absolutely. And it's fair to say that now because I
Explain.
actually, there's actually like two versions of the book, right? I
Okay.
actually wrote the book about 10, maybe 11 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
And at that time, I was fed up. I was pissed off. I was
Yeah.
mad. I was very angry.
Okay.
And my entire intention was to hurt everyone who hurt me. Right? I
Okay.
was I was going to expose everything and everybody. I was mad. But when I look back and reading that version, you would have read that and knew that I was pissed off, but you wouldn't have understood why I was pissed off, right? I was just writing from this emotional state, just getting it out, just mad. But at the same time, I wasn't ready to release the anger. I wasn't ready to face the shame and the guilt that I felt. I wasn't ready to share that part of me. So even though I wanted to let people know, like scream from the rooftops that I was mad and this person did it, I didn't want to share that shame. So it took me to grow and heal and get to a point where I wasn't angry anymore, but I still needed to release that to tell the actual story. And that's what happened in the second version that I actually released. So it was 10, 11 years in the making, but yeah, two completely different versions of the book.
That's interesting, because that puts me, that now makes me wonder. Well, not even wonder, but it gives me this insight that healing isn't necessarily overnight. um when you begin to write it, you wrote it one feeling one way, but you had the courage to continue this journey of healing, and then you were able to produce what we now have as a book. Like you now have a piece of of art that now has the potential to help someone else. Because prior to that, say some 10 years ago, when you first stepped out into this journey, you knew it was with daggers, with
Right, absolutely.
yeah, I'm
I was
coming
giving
for you.
out addresses. I was like, she live over here, and you can catch her at this time. Like I was mad, but
Yeah. But see,
I
and that
digress.
again, it just lets you know, like, that's why when I read it, like, and just knowing that for all that you went through and how you summarized it into just this small package is just a lot. It also says, because I would imagine 10 years ago it was way more detailed, and it was way more personal to the whoever's, instead of the focus being on you, who is the main thing, right?
It, it wasn't as detailed because again, I was just angry. I was just mad, and I wasn't telling the details. I wasn't sharing that. You know what I
Ah,
mean? Like I said, I was still too ashamed to
okay.
share that. So I wasn't saying why I was mad. I wasn't saying what they did or, what happened. I was just mad.
Do you
And
think it was because you were still so hurt?
yeah, I mean, that was part of it, definitely. Like I was still holding on to that anger, that pain, that resentment. Um, yeah, all of that.
Okay,
And I had to overcome that.
that's good. Okay. Now, this was a question that this question, and just so you know that these questions were already chosen not by me per se or by her. These were from the early readers of the book. These are already questions from people who've already read the book. And so I really want to encourage you though to get the book, because I'm telling you, I think that there is something in this book that will really speak to you. It will help you sometimes maybe understand other people, but also maybe something in yourself. Or you may be able to use this book in some type of uh, class or arena where women are hurting, and this may be a great tool for them to hear someone else's story, someone else's testimony of going through hard times but coming out of them, finding an avenue or a way to go through to come out of it. So um, with that, this next question really says, it says, what or who was the inspiration behind the writing of this book?
Um, so the inspiration. So, well, like I mentioned before, I had to release myself from that mental and emotional prison that I had locked myself in. Um, so that was part of me writing the book, to get out of that. And secondly, of course, my mother's addiction. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of heartbreak. Um, abuse. And back then, I didn't have a voice. But I always knew how to write. Um, I always knew how to express myself in my writings, and it just sort of, filtered into that. Um, I don't know if we're going to go over this later on, but I included some letters in the back of the book, and one of the letters was a letter that I wrote to some family members, and I was encouraged to write that letter by my therapist at the time, because I was in therapy, and she encouraged me to write a letter to the people who I felt had wronged me or who had hurt me, so that I could get those feelings out. And she instructed me to write it, read it, burn it, to signify release, letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it, I read it, and I was about to burn it, but I decided that those family members needed to read it.
Wow.
So I made copies.
Yeah.
And I mailed it out to every single one of those family members. And, when I went back to therapy, she was just like, I don't know whether to be proud of you or, be fearful of what's about to happen. Those weren't the instructions that I gave you to do. But anyway, I did it, and that sort of started a continuation of me writing, just getting those feelings out, getting those emotions out in that way. And I had to learn, like I said, to restructure that anger, and make it a little more palatable, if you will. But that's pretty much where it started.
Okay, so while you were, hey Sharon, hey Miss Sharon Bush, how are you? I'm so
Sharon's
glad that
here.
you
Hey,
joined us.
Sharon.
I am so happy you joined us. We are going over our friend's book. The book is titled, as you guys see it right behind me, Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had. And we're here with the author of this amazing book, Miss Tasha Denese Bellamy. The book is under Tasha Denese. She is already
Sharon
answering
has a copy.
for us. I'm sorry.
Sharon has a copy.
Sharon's got her copy. There you go. So Sharon, so some of these may be your questions also that you've asked. So she's already answered 3 questions basically really about her and getting into the book. Now you mentioned something though, Tasha. You were talking about the letters. I actually, oh my God. I read the letter. Oh my God. I read the letter and I must have cried something reading this letter. And um yeah, love your writing. One of the questions does allude to your comedic humor in how you write, because I'm like reading and my little heart is just broken for the girl in this story. But then you say things and they hit me because they're also comical, and you're like tears and laughter at the same time. How do they mix? But you know what? They don't mix, but one does conquer the other.
Right,
And
right.
so again, a whole other amazing strategy that you use to deal with your personal pain. I
Right.
just think that's amazing. And I read one of these letters, your first letter live, the one that you said you mailed out. And whoo, kudos to you, girl, because if this letter had come to me, I would be in counseling. I would have to, because this letter was like, yeah, and I'm standing by the letter, like first I'm like sad and I'm not happy that you have to write this letter, but I'm also cheering you because you had the courage to write this letter. But then there's the other part that's as your girl, because listen, I love God in the most remarkable way, but I will get with you. And so there was the other part that was like, I want to punch somebody in their face for her, because one part of me knows and is familiar with some of the things that you share so candidly in the book. That's why I'm saying, I'm telling you, thank you for writing this. And I believe if this book, as it gets into the right hands, it's just it's going to help the right people. I really do
Yeah.
think that. I really do. I really, really do think that. So, now, me, I'm a reader, so I'm so tempted to read it, but we'll save that for a minute. We'll save it because I do want to get further into these questions. So, the next question is, it just basically asks, what is the book about? Like, what's the book about? And we've kind of alluded to it, but is there anything else you want to add? So if you were sitting in I mean, not a library, but a bookstore, and let's show you how old I am, because when they had libraries, but if we were sitting in a bookstore and a person walked up to you and and they just asked you, well, what's your book about? What's the answer to that?
So I think the answer to most of the questions is going to be my mother's addiction. But so it's about me, of course, enduring that pain, that trauma, that whole experience. Um, and as a child being basically muzzled into silence. I think that's, one of my chapters. I
That's
couldn't,
a word right there.
I
Muzzle.
could, I couldn't speak about it. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't, um, I was, hushed and shamed and, you know, just, I couldn't speak for myself. I couldn't defend myself. So, that's part of it. And I had to, learn to I'm sorry, someone's chiming in. Let me turn this off. So so it's about that, me trying to overcome that, me trying, healing and dealing with that. But it's also about how the pain and trauma, shame, all of that between the relationship between me and my mother transferred into the relationship with me and my daughter, right? And how people don't really talk about that transference and how one impacts the other. So it's about that. And it's also about just, giving people a voice, others who may have been muzzled into silence and couldn't speak up for themselves, letting them know that it's okay. They can speak up for themselves. They don't have to be shamed. They don't have to be silenced. You know what I mean? They don't have to continue to allow people to hurt them and suffer. So yeah, I wrote it for those reasons, to address all of those things.
That's good. That's good. You touched on a lot even in that, and that's a good answer to me. If I didn't know anything about the book, I didn't know you, I didn't know your story, what would prompt me? And so that, I mean, because what people don't get is in the pages of that book, which isn't a long, big, deep, 500-page book, but there's so much rich information, so much personal information, so much of a story, such a colorful story that unfolds so many other things. You mentioned, you said something that I had to write it down. You said you were muzzled into silence.
Mm-hmm.
So like, cause see, I see, I dream in color, and so I hear in color. So muzzled. Wow. And it wasn't because of your addiction, it was because of her addiction. And that muzzling, do you feel like that muzzling was a muzzle of shame, a muzzle of fear, a muzzle of, so when you say muzzled into silence, give me a little more, if you can, what that means, because there's someone that may be muzzled right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some person that may pop in and hear this, and then they hear muzzled into silence, but it speaks to them. So what does that mean when you say you were muzzled into silence? What was that? Was that muzzling fear? Was it shame? What was it?
I would say it's a combination of all of those things. Because I didn't have to just overcome my mother's addiction. Her addiction led to so much
Yeah.
more chaos.
Yeah.
I was sexually abused and assaulted by the father of my younger siblings. And that was something I wasn't allowed to speak about. I wasn't allowed to, you know what I mean? And I wasn't allowed to bring it up. I wasn't allowed, the adults around me who very much knew that situation was going on would just tell me to shut up. I was bringing shame to the family. You know what I mean? I caused it myself. I brought it on myself as a 6-year-old child. I made this grown man do what he did to me. Um, so yeah, I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't even talk about it. I was basically hushed.
Oh, girl, I honestly, I promise you, I am sitting here fighting back my own tears because I mean, only a person who has felt muzzled could really understand that. Like that sentence right there is heavy, muzzled into silence, fear, shame, just the fact that, like you said, people knowing and not giving you permission to even speak on it. They they would rather hold someone else's secret, protecting them, than to protect the person who's being hurt, who's being abused, who's being harmed, right? That is, that right there, that muzzled in the silence. Wow, Jesus. You need to give me something that goes opposite of that, because yeah, muzzled in the silence. You actually took the muzzle off, obviously.
Right, right. It took me
You
a while
obviously,
to do that, but
yeah,
finally I did. And I don't want you to feel sorry for that little girl. I don't want you to cry for that little girl. I mean, obviously, reading the book is going to evoke emotions,
yeah.
right? But I rescued that little girl. She's okay.
And I'm
She's
glad you
safe.
said that, And I want to say this, and I've told, I mean, I try not to cry, but I don't think that my all of my tears are necessarily even for the 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 little girl, which is you in that book, but it's because there are relatable parts of the little girl to me. Like, and that's the part that I think my heart just connects with that part because, like when you said muzzled into silence, I that stands out to me. So I had never even looked at myself in that way until I literally till you just said those words, but I was seeing it in the writing and reading of your book. Yet hearing you say it right now, I it puts, it aligns with that feeling for me. Oh, that's what that was, muzzled, now and I'm with you on the being delivered from that past part, that constant. And I believe deliverance is a continual thing, meaning we daily have to exercise that deliverance, but there is that, like that reminder as I read it, like I remember those thoughts or those feelings. And I do, my heart does, my heart breaks for her then, but I celebrate with you now. So um when I say the book does what it does, you shouldn't have wrote it so good, and you shouldn't have told the truth, So, I mean, you get what you get, it does, and especially for any woman, any young girl, or any young boy, because abuse happens to a lot of people, and many of us have struggled with someone else's issue that fell on us, and
Right.
nobody looked, nobody listened. If anything, it's exactly like you said, we were muzzled into silence. Gee,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
ooh, talk
and
about
that's
another
another
good title for a book. Whew. Ah,
when we talked about earlier the difference in the two transcripts, if you will. The first or earlier version, like I said, was filled with anger and pain, and that's all people would have gotten out of that, right? They wouldn't have gotten the healing. They wouldn't have gotten, you're okay. They wouldn't have gotten any of that. And that's the purpose. One of the purposes of the book is to let people know that they're okay. You know what I mean? It's not their fault. They
good.
don't have
And
to be
that's a good thing
ashamed.
to keep pressing too, is that you realize, because when you're muzzled into silence, you could think it's something that you did, because
Right,
sometimes that's what people tell you. Well, if you
right,
wouldn't have did this, or if you would have just did this, or if you
right,
didn't dress like this, or if
right.
you didn't talk like that.
And that's exactly what I was being told. You
Yeah.
know, as a child,
Wow.
don't wear that around him. Don't walk like that in front of him. Don't. He was a grown man. Like,
Yeah. Ooh, girl, I still struggle with trying to understand how a grown man look at a child and see grown women's stuff. I've never understood that, and my only resolve is, just having to ask God to help me lean into and walk in forgiveness and just excuse these abusers, of their ridiculousness. But I've never understood that. And it is a part that's even in myself that I still have yet, I'm still coming to terms with, because I don't understand it, And I'm sure I
and
won't
you
understand.
never will. If
Yeah. And I know it.
your heart isn't meant to understand that. You
Yeah.
can't understand the heart of someone like that if that's not what if that's not your heart. You're not going to understand that.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. But that's why people like you get to write words, and we get to experience those words and walk through vicariously the same healing process. So again, I thank you for that. So
Thank you.
the next question that I have for you, Tasha, is this question says, what was the hardest, most challenging, or difficult part about writing this book and sharing your story?
Um, Initially, the hardest part was, and this was, some 10 years or so ago. The hardest part was reliving those memories, um, and going through that again. Um, because as you're writing, you're reliving it, you're feeling it, you're smelling it, you're going through all of that again, and dealing with those emotions was was very challenging. And like I said, it was hard for me to get through that, yet alone share it. Um, so I had to get to a point where I could share it. Um, and once I got to that point, I think the hardest part was just completing it, because like anyone who I would imagine who's written a book, especially if you self-publish, there's a lot that goes into that, a lot that I was not aware of. I'm grateful that I had the experience and learned all of that, but it's a lot of intricacies that you just are not aware of. And I was just ready for it to get done. So that was the hardest part, just like, you know, crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and getting it done was the hardest part this time around. But initially, it was just trying to get through those emotions again.
Thank you for that. That's good. The emotional part, I can imagine. Like, I mean, I'm waiting to read it and just read it without feeling so tugged by it. Which is probably why I've read it so many times. Well, I read it because I think it's good, and as I read it, so there's so much to take in that I have to reread it. It's kind of like watching a good movie over again, because even though it was really good and it prompted you to watch it again, you still pick up things that you
Right,
might have only saw in the
right.
peripheral.
You always see
And then you're
something
like,
new when you go back.
oh,
Yeah,
oh wow, um so yeah, that part. So that, thank you for that though. That, I mean, and I imagine it, and as people read it, they will probably see things that, like, wow, how could she write that, or how could she say that, or people have their own whatever thoughts or whatever, but in you finding your path to healing and putting out your I mean, the candidness of this part, that part of your life, putting it out there. I would imagine too. Well, let me ask this: were you at all concerned about any of the backlash or any of the questioning the validity of what you were saying? Because as young girls or young kids, we don't always, we're not respected for truth.
right,
Because
right,
we can tell the truth and nobody wants to hear us, because if you hear me speaking the truth, it might, well, what does that say about me? Because I can think about times when I was trying to tell my own mother something and she didn't want to hear it, even though it was the truth. She just didn't want to hear it. And as kids, especially back in our day, we were told we were supposed to be silent. we don't
right,
we don't talk in grown folks presence. We're seen and not heard. And again, it goes back to that muzzled into silence, when we should be able to say, this is, you should never have to feel like you can't say something is hurting me, something is
right.
bothering me. Nobody sits
Someone
up.
is hurting me. Right, right,
Yeah, like you don't sit up and let the snake or the spider or the whatever just bite you and you just sit there. No, people go wild if something that doesn't belong in that space gets there, right? We go, if something came and doesn't belong here, I'm flailing and hollering and
right,
screaming.
right,
But here in this realm, we're not, we weren't allowed, or you weren't allowed to speak. And this is another part that I think is powerful about your book. And even though, yes, it's you're able to express it now, but I hope the message gets to people that you don't have to wait years
right,
to be healed. You can actually speak up now, right? You can say something today, even though they may be trying to muzzle you into silence. You can actually say, no, this hurts. No, this bothers me. No, this isn't right. Those kind of things,
or
right?
or just, don't allow yourself to be muzzled. Keep speaking until you find someone that's going to listen. You know what I
That's good.
mean? So many people around me weren't listening, and I
Yeah.
just eventually shut down.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, but I mean, you asked if I was worried or concerned about backlash, and the current answer to that question is hell no. So, but I used to be worried about backlash, right?
Mhm.
I used to be worried about what my family would say, what they would think, how they would react, if they would reject me, if they would talk about me, if they would try to, retaliate against me, if they would lie on me, whatever. I worried about all of that. And that was part of that box that I was trapped in, was worried about that. But, you know, at the end of the day, now that I've released the book,
Yeah.
they're going to do what they've always done. They've
Mm.
always talked about me. They've always tried to tear me down. They've always not believed me. They've always, banned me or, pushed me out of the family. Like they've always done those things. They've always lied. All of that they've always done. So why should I fear them doing what they've always done and being who they've always been, right? Why should I keep, you know, hiding in this comfortable little painful box? Because it was safe for me to be in there, but it was painful as hell. Why should I continue because I'm worried about them doing what they've always done to me? I don't care. And I don't say that out of harshness.
No.
I don't care. Like I'm free of that.
Yeah. That's good. That's
Lorenda, no, you're muted.
sorry. That actually segues into the next question. That particular question, which is, I'm sorry about that. The mute, and I was going on too. I thought I was in, but it says, "How do you think your family feels about the book?" That's one part, and then the second part says specifically the family members or the others that you write about in the book.
I think what I just said answers that pretty much. And it's, they're going to continue to do what they've always done.
Yeah,
I can't be concerned with that.
yeah, and
You know, they stopped me for so long, intentionally or not, because I was so fearful and so concerned about them, right? They can't stop me anymore. I'm free, right? And still I rise,
yes, yeah.
right? I'm not concerned about that.
So,
And I'm sorry, what was the second part?
this let me say this because Sharon actually said something, and I love what she just said. She said, "I know this is a weight off of your shoulders, sis." I think that's such a great compliment coming from another one of our childhood friends to to offer that particular support. Also, my friend Bridget, who also is reading the book currently, she said she was gifted this book and she's currently reading it now, and she thanks you, Tasha, for your transparency. And I'm hoping I'm gonna have a discussion with Bridget after she reads this book, because everyone has their own relatability to this book, and so it would be very interesting. I'd love for you to meet her too. Hopefully one day. She's amazing, and I'd love for you to meet her, because there may be things that you never know what a person picks up from what you read.
Right,
We will all read it from the avenue of life that we stand in, right?
right,
Yeah. So
right. And
that second part of it says specifically it was specific to the family members or the other people that are in the book that you wrote about. How do you feel? Is there another or a different feeling that you have for them? Because the first part was, how do you feel about how do you think your family would feel now? um there's a part, let me say this too, there's a part in the book that actually threw me off, and I didn't know this, and I don't mean to, I pray that I'm respectful when I say this, Tasha, which was the part about your brother who has passed away since. And I I know as we've grown up and we've lived different places and all of that, but I didn't know that part. So I was sad and hurt, and I was in remorse for that situation, but I also was angered in the fact that, they, because it really points, that's a part of the story that really points to the how far out addiction reaches, right? Because you're telling your story, but it also trickles into the life of your siblings, and
Mm-hmm.
particular sibling, your brother, and God rest his soul, whose life is no longer with us. But how, like, that moved me in a whole other way, because it just showed me the powerful outreach that drug addiction has,
Right.
in this part, in your story, in your life story. So that was, is there anything you would want to say about that? Because I found that a very powerful part of your story. And I honor you for not leaving that out, because that was, it was an unexpected, it was unexpected because I didn't even know that part. I didn't know. And then, the normal part of us, because the way I'm made, I wanted to, like, God, how did I didn't even know that. And then, but then, but I also honored you, because I'm like, your love is so deep, Tasha, that you, like, in your writing, even in your healing, you you don't even badger the people. You just speak a truth, your truth, and then you didn't even leave. That's a hard part. That was a hard, to me, that was a hard part. And I'm like, but she still brought that in, which also, it showed me, and this is how my little colorful brain works. It was like, from you were hugging him from this part, from this side to his, where he is now, to say, even in your death you have not been forgotten. So what he could not say, you still get to say in your healing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean,
And I
that's how
thank you for saying that.
when I read it, I was like, my emotions were like, whoo. And but then I'm like, this is what a sister does. This is the love of, this is what should, you're demonstrating, or you demonstrated what, only what you wanted. Like, love really covers a multitude of things, and you express your love to him even in your healing, because you could be like, this is all about me, and but no, you didn't leave out your siblings, you didn't leave out your own children, regardless to what that looks like. You didn't leave any, there, you didn't leave no stones unturned. I'll say that.
I mean, I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't tell half the story. I couldn't tell, portions of the story. I had to tell it all. Now, granted, there are some things that I did not include in the book. But
Yeah.
there's a whole lot I didn't include in the book. But I mean, I had to be as transparent as I could, and reveal as much as I could. And as far as my siblings, we all experienced that, but we all had different experiences,
That's good.
and I was my mother's oldest, firstborn.
Yeah.
So I caught, the bulk of that. Um, but and I also wanted to address Sharon and, was it Bridget? I wanted to thank both of them for their comments, and thank them both for getting the book. And yeah, I would love to meet Bridget. But but yeah, I think it was different experiences for all of us, and I don't think there's anything that I would say to any of the family members that I mention in the book or write about in the book. Because to be honest, I don't think at this point it really matters or will make a difference.
Yeah.
But I do wish them well. I do wish them healing for themselves,
Yeah.
whatever that means to them or for them. I wish that for them, um, life goes on.
I like that. I really do. It just shows where your heart has to be in healing. You have and making a conscious decision to just continuously forgive, heal, release. Right. So Sharon says, she said thank you though for that what you just said. But she also says she's validating. She says I was there when a lot of stuff was going on, and she said I never doubted you. And and Sharon, girl, I I don't know. I think I must look at windows with something, because I'm like all I when I would look at Tasha, and I was like, she's one of the prettiest girls that I knew, and you still extremely beautiful, Tasha. When I tell you our life has not beat us down as they wanted to beat us down, listen, listen, we've been kept in a way that even with the horror stories that may be attached, there's something that has still maintained or remained in us, because you are phenomenally beautiful, and then to be in a
Thank you.
position
Thank
to
you.
exercise the past and to bring it out, to um put it on the table, spread it out, and you leave it with the this is what it is, and it is what it is. And you can sign your name on it, and they just have to go for it,
Right.
or not. Now that's my sister and I. That's our thing is, well, you could do it or not. It is what it is. So, but here you left it on the table, and again, I can't even compliment you enough. I can't I just it's just this is a well done work to me. From what I read, and even my own daughter she just was like, "Wow, mom, wow," because I don't know if the people of today have the tenacity that we had. People crumble now. You can't talk too bad about them. They just fall down. They don't want to deal with nothing. They're all they're run into all kinds of things, or methods of escape. And here, I don't know what it is, what makes it different, but our just the need to survive, right?
Right.
The need to survive, the need to survive. I'm glad that you've done that. Now that thinking about your talking about your family, you did mention your own children. As I mentioned your sibling and your children, but you mentioned that earlier you said some of these issues, they sometimes show out or show up in our own personal families. I know that you're the mother of uh, two children, right?
Right.
Children, one daughter and one son. Now, what does that look like? There actually the question is, how is the relationship between you and your daughter? But I'm going to add your son as well, because that's an interesting thing, from you being healed from the addiction you never had. Was there any residual that fell into, or you, whether you meant to or did not mean to, deposit it into your own mother as you were mothering your own children? And what
Right.
that like?
Absolutely. There was absolutely some transference. Absolutely. More so with my daughter than my son. My son and I were extremely close, fortunately. And I mentioned in the book that the difference between those two relationships is that I had moved away from my family by the time I had my son. So he didn't have to experience all of that chaos and negativity. He didn't have to experience them as much as my daughter did. And that's sad to say, because your family should be your support system. They should be people that you can run to for help and whatever else. But that just wasn't the case for me. Um, as far as my daughter, um, that relationship, that situation is still, it's still very fragile. It's still very fresh. My daughter and I haven't communicated in several months. I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but almost a year. And as harsh as it may sound or come across, I'm okay with that. And the reason I'm okay with that is, you know, when my daughter and I are in communication, when we are around each other, when we are just in any capacity together, it's exhausting. It just became exhausting, just trying to gauge her emotions and figure out if she's in a good mood or a bad mood, figure out if she's angry at someone else, because of course, if she was angry at someone else, I had to catch that heat too. And just constantly tiptoeing around her emotions and her feelings and trying to make sure I said the right thing or did the right thing, just so that I could love on my grandchildren, you know what I mean? Just so that I could be in their lives, right? And that just became exhausting. And, you know, in the book, I mentioned that I had to walk on eggshells and walk on slithers of glass, right? And it eventually I realized it didn't matter. It didn't matter how much I tiptoed around, you know, cleaned up the mess, swept up the eggshells, cleaned up the broken glass. My daughter would find a way or find a reason to throw a whole nother crate of eggs and a whole nother panel of glass on the floor for me to have to tiptoe around and, you know, and jump through hoops. And it was just exhausting. And as painful as it is not to be in my grandchildren's lives the way I would like to be, I'd rather deal with that pain than continue to allow her to let her pain cause me more pain. Like, I can't deal with that anymore. And, you know, I've attempted to have conversations with my daughter. I've apologized for what I've done, what I haven't done, for what may be, what could be, you know, and I just can't do it anymore, you know. And, you know, her response to me is always, you know, if I say, well, you know, what can I do? What's the problem? What's the issue? What have I done? What, you know, how can I make this right? You know, and her response is always, I don't have a problem. You must have a problem. I don't have issues. You must have issues. There's nothing wrong with me. It must be something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Just that whole gaslighting. So, you know, how can you possibly, you know, connect with someone who's just right there all the time? And it's just always been like that. And I can't continue on that path. And she's been like that since she was a little girl, right? And I remember once when this guy that I was dating, he came to me one day and he was just like, you know, what's going on with you and your daughter? You know, what's the deal? Nothing's going on. You know, what are you talking about? And he was just like, something's going on. And I was like, why do you say that? You know, and he was like, the things that she just said to me, if I didn't know you, I would think you were the worst mother in the world. Well, what did she say? You know what? I'm not gonna get into that, but I think you should talk to her. I think you should have a conversation with her. As a mother, right? You don't want to believe that. You don't want to believe your child is saying things about you, you know, and you're trying to figure out like why, like what, you know, what could she have possibly said? What could I have possibly done? And during that time, I was still managing my guilt, my guilt of leaving her, making the decision to leave her with her grandmother, when she was younger. I was battling that guilt. I was still battling the shame of not having a relationship with my mother, right? And not wanting my relationship with my daughter to look like that. So, I'm still dealing with all of this. And when he told me, I didn't necessarily brush it off, but I was just like, she's probably mad because she's on punishment. She'll get over it. She'll be fine. Just typical, juvenile or whatever adolescence, whatever age she was at that time, behavior. And I just sort of brushed it off. Well, maybe a week later, 2 weeks, maybe, a friend of mine called me up and she was like, hey, what's going on with you and your daughter? What's the deal? What are you talking about? What do you mean? And, where the guy that I was dating wouldn't necessarily tell me, your girlfriend gonna tell you, right? And she was like, girl, she said this, and that. You need to talk to her, right? And again, I was just like, what? Like, where is this coming from? Why is she doing this? I was in total disbelief, total shock, but still was like, maybe it's my fault, maybe because I abandoned her, she feels that I abandoned her. Maybe I deserve, what she's saying and what she's doing. And so I was trying to figure out a way to talk to her about it, right? How to approach her about it, because I wanted to get to the bottom of it, of why she was saying the things that she was saying. And she was literally saying this to anybody that would listen. She would talk about me and say things about me. And I was just a horrible mother. And I did this and I did that, just all of these things. And one day we were, my daughter and I were together and we were traveling down the highway. And I was the whole time, we were just chit chatting and I was trying to figure out how I was going to bring this up to her, right? So that we could get to the bottom of it. And she said something slick out her mouth and I backhanded her right before I knew it. And in that moment, I was angry, right? And instead of getting to the bottom of it, I was just like, look, I don't know what your problem is, but you're going to stop talking about me today. And you're going to stop spreading lies about me. And you're going to stop going to any and everybody saying things about me today. It stops today, right? In my mind, that was it. I nipped it in the bud. It was done. It wasn't. So what she started doing was, instead of telling people who would come back to me and let me know the things that she was saying, she started talking to people that she knew wouldn't come back to me, right? Wouldn't say anything to me that would pacify her behavior, that would justify her behavior, that would praise her and tell her, yeah, your mom deserves that. Yeah, your mom is a horrible person. Or, yeah, just whatever she needed to hear. Those were the people she was talking to. And I never knew any of this was going on, right? She's still doing it. For years, she's doing this. I remember she had something, this was after she had started having, my grandchildren. And she had invited me over for an event. I think it was a birthday party. And I had never met the father and the father's mother until that day, that visit. And both of them literally pulled me aside after, being there for some time and sort of mingling with everybody. They both pulled me aside separately and were like, you're nothing like your daughter said. Like, we were thinking you were just this horrible person. His mother was just like, I didn't know if I wanted to like you, based on the things that she said about you. And I'm just like, she's still doing this. Like what the hell? Like, what? I remember when, after my oldest grandson was born, he was still a baby. I'm not sure how old he was. He wasn't a year old. He was still, an infant. And this was like maybe a year, year and a half, maybe 2 years after my brother's death. Well, in the book, I talk about the lawsuit from my brother's death, right? There was a lawsuit and there was insurance money, right? The proceeds from that were supposed to be distributed between his surviving siblings, right? My mother at the time was still very much an active crackhead, very much. Like, she was out there. So the attorneys didn't want to give all of the money to my mother, right? So they ended up making the payment out to my mother and my younger sibling, the one I talk about in the book. I never knew the total amount, right? I've been given different versions of how much it was, or, what have you. Never knew the exact amount. But from what I understand, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars that they received, my family received. My younger sibling and my aunt that I talk about in the book told the attorneys that I didn't exist, right? I didn't deserve not one red cent, right? I was excluded from that. So, but then, or fast forward rather, a year and a half, 2 years later, my grandson was born. My aunt and my younger sibling decided to take my daughter on a shopping spree for the grandbaby, right? They took her to like Walmart and they bought her crib, walker, stroller, car seat, clothes, diapers, wipes, like everything he needed, he had, right? Which was great. But what wasn't great is the intention behind that, right? Because they had basically stole this money from me, but they were going to rub it in my face that I wasn't getting a dime and that they were doing this for my daughter and I wasn't capable of doing it. So they were going to do it, right? So my daughter, of course, being loyal to them, she made sure that I knew that they purchased all of this for my grandson. And, she was just like, my baby got everything he needs, for the next 2-3 years. He said, I ain't got to come out of my pocket for nothing. I'm good. I'm straight. And, and she made sure that I knew that I didn't buy any of it, right? That they bought it. And I said to her, I said, well, the only reason they're doing that is to hurt me. I was like, they don't really care about you and the baby. I said, it's great that they got the baby, all that stuff, but they don't care about you or the baby. They just want to hurt me. They just want to rub it in my face that I didn't get any of that money. They just want to rub it in my face that they got all this for you and I can't do it. You know what I mean? Or I wasn't able to do it. So that's all they're doing. They just want to hurt me. They stole from me. My daughter looked me in my face and said, and excuse my language, because I know you're a reverend, but she looked me in my face and she said, I don't care whose money they stole. I don't care how much they hurt you. I got what I want and my baby got what he needs. I cannot begin to tell you the level of pain I felt for my daughter to look me in my face and essentially say, fuck you. I don't give a damn about you. As long as I get what I want and what I need, I don't give a fuck about your feelings. I don't care about them hurting you. I don't care about them stealing from you. I got what I want, right? And that has always been my daughter's attitude and mentality towards me. As long as she gets what she wants and what she needs, it doesn't matter what she does or says to hurt me. It does not matter. And for years, when she was younger, I looked away because I felt guilt. I felt shame. I felt like it was my fault. As she got older, and I allowed that to continue. And as she got older, you introduced my grandchildren And again, I turned away because I wanted to be in my grandchildren's lives. So it just continued, right? And that has always been their MO, and that has always been her behavior. And I just got tired, just tired. When I did go eventually, or finally, I should say, go get my daughter from living with her grandmother. Excuse me, Miss Scott, God rest her soul. But I had to battle my shame, my guilt, her attitude, and just constantly making me feel guilty and reminding me that I left her and that, I didn't love her. I loved my son. I didn't love her. So I had to deal with that. But on top of that, I had to deal with the fact that, and I mentioned in the book how I left her in Fort Myers with her grandmother, and I had went over to Miami. And the entire time, my mother, my aunt, my siblings, they all had access to my daughter. And I never knew until she was much older that they were saying things to her like, your mother not coming back for you. Your mother doesn't love you. Your mother left you here because she doesn't want you. She ain't coming back. So I had to deal with my shame, my guilt, her anger, her resentment, and the seeds that they had planted, right? I had to deal with all of that and didn't even realize that's what I was dealing with. And I have always had to deal with that. And I am tired. I can't continue to battle her demons and fight her pain or try to help her heal through that, especially when she denies she even has it. She's not going to talk to me. She'll talk about me, but she's not going to talk to me. I can't deal with that anymore. I cannot. I can't deal with her. I can't deal with my family. I can't deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just continuous.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you. That was, what I see is that one, there's that, it shows even more so that outreach of what sadly your mother's imprisonment, her addiction to drugs, and how not only did it firsthand affect you guys, but it also trickled into your own relationship. And then like in listening to you, what I hear too is still there's still a lot of healings to still continue, you know because just like you cannot fix your family who hurt you, as much as you love your own seed, your own child, you also can't fix them either, and making the hard, and I know it has to be hard, decision to keep you in the first position so you can heal. And hopefully, she will experience that healing by watching you continue and not being manipulated by those triggers. Because one thing I can tell you about people who are close to us, like our partners in life or our children, or your real your good friends, they know the buttons that make you go. They know the buttons that make you stop. They know the buttons that make you cry or make you mad. So even in hearing you elaborate on that, I just can see and sense that this is the second wave, or another wave of that, still that addiction that you didn't even have. This is still a part of it, and so in the realm of who I am, there are certain things that it's just natural for me to do. I pray for your daughter, for her heart, because it takes a lot of energy to keep holding on to something. And I'm sure you can relate to that. And hence why writing the book is so healing, because it takes a lot. I'm not even going to diminish, because you never know. She may see this and she needs to hear your truth, but she also needs to hear the fact that, here's the deal: you have every right to feel the way you feel. And we, just like no one will take your truth that we now have in written form, we can't take what their idea of truth is. However, the fact of the matter is just like you're coming into your healing part, as you're doing what you have to do for you, they have to do the same. Now the hard part, as you already know, because you guys were the collateral damage to your mother's actions, unfortunately, and your aunts and your uncles and their, all of those folks, and the rapists and the 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 possible murderers, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is they, everyone else who has had this sprinkle of that addiction on them have to also come to their point. We all have to, and the journey isn't easy, and it's sad. And if she sees this, I hope that she will, in her mind, maybe right now she doesn't feel like, there's nothing wrong, because we know what it's like, Tasha, to wear a mask, and we go along. We go along for the sake of survival. It's hard to face. Who was it? Was it Michael Jackson who said, "I'm starting with the man in the mirror"? Because when I'm talking about getting better, I gotta start with me. Here is your man in the mirror. This is your man in the mirror. You had to start with that, and that meant I'm not, whatever other reflections are in the mirror, that's not the focus. The focus is the one that I'm looking at. And so even with that, and I could just, just hearing you speak on that, I know and sense, and I'm sure anybody else in the audience, they can sense that that is, clearly the decade plus that is taking you to get to this point, in regards to the people who inflicted that pain from back then, and those issues from back then, and that hurt from back then, and the muzzle from back then. But you still have now this other trickle down effect that it, and you're finding a way, and I applaud you in this too. You have to take care of you. You have to. And so that exhaustion, that I'm tired of jumping through hoops, doing back bends and splits and stuff. Like, I don't even do that stuff no more. If survival means we have to do this, then let's survive. Because at the end of the day, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, even you, in your tiredness of stepping back and just focusing on you, you still, there's a hope that the love will rekindle, and that you'll have a beautiful relationship with your daughter, which opens the door to your grandkids. And I really hope that, because I don't even know why a person would want to live in a world without the love of their mother, if it's still available to them. Because in your sense, it wasn't available because addiction had taken that love. That was, sadly, your mom's position. And I don't mean any disrespect to your mother. It's just that's the story that you tell. So with that, but you aren't that. And it doesn't mean that you haven't made what you don't deny. You may have made choices that didn't fanfare well for her, but you made choices that you thought at the time were the best thing you could do. And a lot of
Absolutely. And
yeah,
you have to consider the fact that I was 2 months shy of turning 15 when I had my daughter.
yeah.
I was a child,
I remember
right?
I remember.
I had no idea how to be a mother, right?
Wow.
No idea. No idea how to love. No idea how to do any of that.
Wow.
I knew that I wanted to be loved, and that I finally had something that I could love genuinely, and that could love me back. I knew that, right? But I didn't know what I was doing. I was a child. So I absolutely made mistakes along the way. I have hundreds, if not thousands, of regrets, things that I may have done or said. I own all of that, but I can't fight those demons for her. I cannot.
No.
And I'm not going to. Not
Yeah.
anymore. When I freed myself from that prison,
Yeah.
I threw away the key. Like, I'm free. I'm done with that, you know?
And keep walking in that freedom, because it's that walk even though a part of it may have to be without that, without that recognized love or recognized, pride that, I would have in my mother, who survived such horrible and horrific things. But you also realize there was a lot of implantation into her, unfortunately, because you had to make a decision that you, in order to make yourself or put yourself in a good position. And y'all, that's in the book. It's all in the book. That's why you got to get the book, because she's giving you a synopsis. And I'm here to tell you, girl, I sense a whole other book in regards to just the relationship with you and daughter, because it is my hope that you guys will, that just like you've healed from this stuff, you'll find healing, and she will too. She will. I'm confident in it, because if you could survive what you survived, she's got to find her path to survival, because she's got to overcome any of the BS, the bull stuff that was put in her too. You know what I'm saying? Because if not, then you'll have a cycle of your next generation of seed, which is your grandkids, that will, you get what I'm saying? And so healing,
Absolutely.
it always has to start with the main part, and you're the main part, and you've started the progress. I think it's just amazing, and there's so many opportunities where the truth of your story could be such a help. I mean, even in that part, the relationship, how the fallout of addiction, how it has affected even your relationship with your own
Right.
child. And
Right.
then, and if there's no healing to come quick, it will affect the relationship with her children,
Right.
right? Um,
Because no matter how much you try to hide it, it's there.
or
And that
deny it.
was right. And that was part of my issue, if you will. I was so determined to not allow my children to have to deal with that, to see it, to witness it, to be a part of it, that I just sort of tried to shield them from it, in a major way. It was obviously too late for my daughter. She had already been impacted by that. But my way of shielding them was to not talk about it, to not tell them what happened, to not let them know what I went through, to not discuss it, just keep them from it. But in holding it in, you're just reliving it. You know what I mean? Like in the book, I mentioned that I wasn't protecting her from it. I had just wrapped her inside of it, and she was just living it right along with me, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and healing is a continuous process. It's a continuous journey. It's a lifetime journey.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and who knows? You may have to pick up the pen again and start writing some more, because I can just tell, just your elaboration on that part. This is probably the freshest part, or the rawest part now. Whereas you had these old canker sores that now have scabs on them, and some of them are just residual scars. But with your daughter, just in the way that you elaborated on it, I can sense that this is the still the part that's still sore, and it also speaks to the reach of the addiction from your past, from your mom. It wasn't even your addiction. So, again, overcoming the addiction I never had. I ain't never did a drug, yet here I am struggling like the junkie on the street. I'm struggling because of their addiction. I'm telling you, amazing, amazing. Y'all have to get the book. This book is available on many platforms. You can get it Barnes and Noble. You can get it Amazon. I've already ordered a couple from Amazon,
You
and
can also get it on my website,
there you go.
tashadenise.com.
Thank you. So, say that again.
It's tashadenise.com.
Let me put that in.
TASHADENESE.com.
It's all okay. Wait. Tasha Yes.
I can put it in the
Yeah. I'm like,
comments.
TashaDenese.com. Yes. So yes. So yeah, and actually, if it's better for you to have it ordered on your website, I know I have mine. I have my autographed copy, and I'm so appreciative of it. But I also have it on my available so I can read it on my phone or on my iPad or on my laptop, whatever I'm doing. If I have a moment to sit, I read. I really do read it. And so and this is one of those books, honestly, sometimes it's a little too hard to take because the truth is the truth. But I am a firm believer the truth makes us free. And you found this area of freedom, sis, friend. I encourage you, even if it means you have to pull away from some things in order to survive and to keep living, just keep doing it. You got to do what you got to do. And we have to just trust and believe that it will all come out in the wash. I mean, even as ugly as it was back then, 20, 30 years ago, um, here you are today, able to use all of that trash, and now you're able to turn it into a treasure. And not a treasure because we trying to glorify it, but a treasure because as you survive it, you can now help someone else survive, right? I think that's amazing. And so that was a lot, and that's a lot of questions, and y'all got to get the book. But there is something, there's let me see, there's these are let me see how I want to ask this. Okay, so there's two questions in relationship to your mom and that family member. I'm sorry, I had you can hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So this question this question says, what would you say, and we know that your mom has passed, what would you say to your mom today, as well as to your aunts? And the reason that I believe that question is put together is because the aunts, who are the sisters to your mom, correct,
Right.
were very well aware and maybe even coddled, or maybe there was some negative feelings according to the way you feel in regards to the aunt and your relationship to your mom. If your mother was still alive today, after this project that you've written, what would you say to her today on August the 21st in the Lord's year 2022? What would you say to your mom today?
So, are you asking what I would say to both her and my aunt, or just my
I'm
mom?
asking to your mom and to your aunts.
Okay. So,
She said, all right, you want me to keep it PG? But
right. So, no, seriously. So my aunt, I'll start with her.
okay.
I, I wouldn't say anything to her. Because like I mentioned earlier, I don't know, we were talking about my sibling or whoever, other family members. I don't know that it would make a difference for me to say anything to her. My aunt is, up in age. From what I understand, she has some health issues, and I certainly wish her, wellness. I hope she can get through that. There are no ill feelings on my part, no resentment. Um, she does not feel the same way. She's still just, but I would say to her that I hope that she can find a way to go back deep inside herself and find that little broken little girl, that damaged little girl, and tell her that she loves her, so that that little girl can tell her that she loves her back, and they can both be free. Because my aunt is a pill and a half. And most people, and you made a comment earlier, a phrase, a statement, you said it is what it is, right? And I take issue with that to an extent, right? Not with you, but just that statement.
No, I'm
Because I feel like when people say it is what it is, or that's just how she is, or that's just what he does, that essentially they're saying you just have to accept it and deal with it. You know, you can't do anything about it. Oh, well, it is what it is. That's just how she is. In my opinion, I don't have to accept that. And instead of saying it is what it is, as if it's okay and, you know, just bow down and walk away, no, identify what it is. What it is horrible. What it is disgusting. What it is, you know, chaos. What it is a drug addiction. You know what I mean? Identify it, deal with it, face it, resolve it. Don't just say it is what it is and walk away and let it be. No, you don't have a right to treat me like crap because that's just the way you are. No, you don't have a right to rape me and disrespect me because of your fragile or bruised ego. Like you don't have a right to do that, right? Identify it, call it what it is. And my aunt has been, you know, everybody in the family, they're just like, oh, that's just how she is. You know, she's just mean. She's just that. But something caused that meanness. So if she can go back and identify that, heal that broken little girl inside of her and be okay, then that's what I wish for her, right? Nothing more, nothing less. Other than that, there's nothing that I can say to my aunt because she ain't hearing it no way. Yeah, no. As far as my mom, I actually wrote something. Let me see if I can find it. I recently participated in a grateful. It was a 5-day grateful challenge, right? We spent 5 days identifying. Well, we were given like different themes that we had to focus on each day. Shout out to Dr. Latoya, by the way. She's the one that created the challenge. But so one day they did relationships and people, right? And we had to, she specifically, one of our tasks was to identify a relationship that we had that wasn't the best experience, but instead of looking at it as something negative, to pull something positive out of that experience, right? And I wrote about the relationship with my mother, or I'll read what I wrote. So my mother passed away on July 4th, 2019. Prior to her death, our relationship at best was damaged and broken, as she had a drug addiction that predated my existence and became increasingly worse after I was born. And it went as far back as I can remember to about 5 or 6 years old. I was her firstborn child, but my mother's addiction took priority over me, and it caused me so much pain and shame that it created a deep hole in my heart that penetrated the depths of my entire soul being and my life, and it impacted every relationship I attempted to have with people. Because I couldn't trust the first person or woman in my life and never experienced a bond of love, acceptance, or support from my mother, or honestly, any of the adult women in my family as a child, that energy of distrust filtered its way into almost every single one of my relationships, but especially my connections or lack thereof with women. It even interfered with my ability to bond with my own firstborn child, my daughter. Recently, I published a book about my life struggles, experiences, and everything that I had to endure, run from, fight against, and eventually face and stop running from in order to heal and overcome. I initially set my release month for my book to be in November, to allow myself time to get everything done without any added pressure, or at least that's what I told myself. In reality, all I was doing was procrastinating and avoiding the inevitable. With the help of my editor, who encouraged me as well as pushed me out of my comfort zone of fear, I completed the book and was able to release it much sooner than I had originally planned. I changed the release date at least a million times throughout the process due to various setbacks. But once everything was finally finished, the book was completed, published, and released on July 4th of 2022. 3 years to the date after my mother's transition. I know there are some who would feel some kind of way about that. And to be honest, I initially felt some kind of way about that date as well. But after meditating and lighting a whole bunch of candles for clarity and guidance, I realized that releasing the book on the day of my mother's passing would allow us both to receive the peace that we couldn't achieve in our relationship while she was still alive. I choose to believe that my mother somehow ushered that decision and that she is just as okay with the release date as I am. Because on that date, so much more than my book was released. I am finally mentally, emotionally, and spiritually free. Although still a movement in progress, I now have the capacity to genuinely hold space for and trust others and to make more meaningful and authentic connections with people. And for that, I am more than grateful. So, to answer your question, I would just simply tell my mother thank you, because at least I was able to pull that from that.
That's powerful. Wow. That's actually very powerful. Now let me ask you this, and we'll be closing this part out. But this is probably going to be my final question, which is: has your mother, or in her life, did she ever apologize to you, or did you? I know that you've forgiven her, but has she ever apologized? Oh, okay.
This is water, but
Okay. Okay.
so in order to apologize for something, right,
Yeah.
you have to first acknowledge that something was done that deserves an apology.
Yeah.
My mother was in such denial
Yeah.
about everything, her addiction, the abuse, just she was in such denial. And like, to an extent, I get it, right? Because when you get to a certain space in your life, right, you don't want to relive your past. You don't want to think about what used to be or what happened or whatever. And that's fine, right? You have every right to move on from whatever. But you can't expect other people to forget and move on, from what happened to them just because you decided that you moved on and you're going to block it out and you're going to act like it didn't happen, so that you can just continue. And like my mother and I, we didn't communicate a lot because of it, it just caused so much friction. But when we did communicate, I never brought up the past to my mother because I knew she couldn't deal with that. She couldn't talk about it. She couldn't, I never brought it up. I never tried to make her feel guilty. I never shamed her, none of that. But I think just my presence alone
Yeah.
reminded her of everything she didn't do. She didn't protect me. She wasn't there for me. She left me. She allowed the sexual abuse. She knew about I think I just reminded her of that so much
Yeah.
that it was just constant anger, constant resentment. Like we could not exist in the same, setting. Like she was interesting.
That was good. I know that wasn't the
So no,
easiest.
she never.
She never apologized. I know that that wasn't the easiest question, but I did. because of just hearing it, it was prompted by your letter that you wrote to your mom. And so it was just interesting because it also speaks to the capacity that you had to reach and continue to push towards to walk in this area of forgiveness even without the apology. Yeah. So, whew, listen, um with I mean that is a lot. Now there are some questions um as we close, get ready to close this out, and it's just about they're about writing books. Those I mean, like, and you kind of alluded to some things, like when the challenges or the experiences that you had when you were writing the book, and how there were parts that like when just trying to get everything executed, not having all of the knowledge of what to do, especially as a yourself uh what's the word you said, say it again.
Self-publishing.
Self-publishing, sorry about that. My brain didn't even get that. Self-publishing. So um there's one question here that says, I'm going to put these two together. What would you say to someone, or what advice would you give to someone that's inspired to write a book or to be an author? And and then and then you can close that out by what's next for you. Like, what do you see yourself doing now that you are a published author? I mean, you're published, girl. You're out there, and I'm waiting to see. This is screen material to me. It is screen material, and I'm here to tell you, listen, somebody's gonna see this. I need this book to be in the right hand, because I this is screen material. This is Lifetime movie stuff. My husband hates the Lifetime channel, but you know why I like it? Because they all allude to someone's real story.
Right, right.
Okay, they allude to someone's real story. So Lifetime's been around for a minute. Don't sleep on Lifetime now. Now we'll take Mr. Perry. We'll take you, Tyler. Now, I knew Tyler when he didn't have no shoes, and he was living in his car, and he wrote his first play. But he's big time now, So, and that's fine. But we all started somewhere.
I mean, and Mr. Perry isn't the only, producer out there now.
No, he's not. And I'm saying, I'm using him just as an example, because he
I'm
was
just
like
teasing.
you. He started writing his truth, and that's the
I'm
only
just
reason that.
joking. I'm just joking. I would be more than grateful.
Listen, look, but I'm saying, no. He is a actual living right now example of someone
Right.
who just wrote
Who
their.
overcame. Right.
They wrote their truth, and now he didn't write it in a book. What he did is he wrote it in a play. Then he got some
Right.
people to come act it out for him, but it was his story.
Right, right, right.
Okay, you wrote yours, and it's in an actual book, velvet book at that. Charlie, y'all got to get this book just to feel the cover. The book is velvety. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, here's the deal. I do read this one, but where I mostly read the one that's I have the book in my phone, because I can just flip my just push my screen and then flip the pages. I'm waiting on the audio version. I tell anybody, and I have a few friends, several friends that are now authors, and I don't know why people don't put their book in audio form. Audio form is the way to go. I know
Right,
it.
right, right.
I don't know what
I
it
have a
costs,
few people
it's
that have
the way to
requested
go.
audio.
Huh?
I have a few people who've requested
It's
audio,
the
so I'm
way to
definitely working on
go.
that.
And in our age group, in our geographic, we're on the move. We're not sitting at home just rocking in a chair reading. We are on the move. So on the move, I can still listen. I can
Right,
listen, read to the story. I listen to my Bible all the time while I'm driving. Why? Because it talks to me. It will read for me. So
right.
I just encourage people to do that. But for you, right now that you're out there, and I just see you. I do. When I say blowing up, I don't mean just in the sense, but I want to see your name in lights. I really do. I want to see this put in the hands of someone, if or groups or someone, that there's an explosion of effectiveness, that your hardship, that you're overcoming the drug addiction that you never had, was not in vain. I want that for you. I want that for you more than you
Thank
can
you,
know.
thank you,
I
thank you.
want that for you, like I wrote the book. Okay, I really do want it for
Thank you. Thank you so much. I
because I think
appreciate
the
you.
material in it is deserving of being you we need I need groups of hurting women to read this book.
Right, right.
My friend Bridget is she just got her all of her she's doing all her final paperwork to open a women's group home, a home so
Okay.
that hurting women can come into. I see books like this sitting in available to these women and going over it and taking out parts to talk about or help relate to their own thing,
Right,
because
right.
that's what healing is
And
about.
that's the hope, right? Exactly. To spread that healing, right?
Exactly. And I see in you a whole nother book, because just listening at you um carefully, and I love that you were very careful as you talked about where you were with your own daughter. And I appreciate that. I respect that so highly. How I can sense as a mother that that is still sitting on you, but you still were careful in how you chose to display it, but yet smart enough to display it nonetheless,
Right.
because you're looking and starting with the girl in the mirror.
Absolutely.
And that's just, you just have to be real. And that realness is not intentional to hurt anyone or to point people out, but I can't deal with truth if I don't deal with truth.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't deal with it
Absolutely.
if I don't actually deal with it. So I respect that. So
Thank you. Thank
what
you.
is the, do you have a few words of advice to someone who is writing, and what is the next thing that you see for yourself in this world of writing?
So, um, I'm always writing, to your point, so, I mean, there may be a couple more books on the way because I'm always writing, but I don't know what I would or what I could tell a potential writer. Um, I mean, I've always been a writer because that was just simply my way of being able to express myself, right?
Yeah.
But as far as my book, like it's not about writing. You know what I mean? It's about healing. So the purpose of the book is to help someone heal or realize that it's possible for them. Um, Writing, as much as I love to do it, I don't know that I'm the person to tell someone else how to structure that or how to go about doing that. If there is someone, obviously someone asked the question, but if there's someone who's truly interested, I can certainly point them in the right direction. I can give them my editor, my, book designer, my formatter, I can get them in touch with people that can help them with that process. But I don't know that I can, help them with that. And rather than, sharing my story, my process, which I am working on a blog, and one of my first blog posts will be about my writing process. So, that may help someone.
Okay.
As far as what's next, I mean, I feel like the sky's the limit. I'm no longer in that box. I'm open. I'm free. I'm ready for whatever.
I like it.
I would, to see for my book to go from print to screen.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. I never really thought that far into it, but all the same, that would be amazing. But yeah, I mean, the sky is the limit. I'm always writing. I'm always creating. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. More than likely, you'll be one of the first to know.
Well,
But
I'm honored.
we'll see.
I'm so honored. This is really cool, because I like to just read, but I really wanted to talk about it, break the ice. Thank you for letting me be the first little peon to do this. I encourage you, put yourself out there, read parts of the book, just put it out there, because it's worth it. It's the material, what you put into this book is so worth the read. I wouldn't even, tell anybody if I didn't think it was. I love to read, but I don't just read because I can read. I read what means something to me. I read what captures my attention. And the title alone caught me. I'm telling you, you said something to me that was a whole title, Muzzled into Silence. That's a title right there. I like that. That hit me like somebody pushed me upside my head. Like,
Every chapter is my truth.
listen, let me tell you, I think I do this every time I talk about this book because your chapters, they are something else. Listen, y'all, they start with broken heart, fixed vision. Some wounds take more time to heal. Careless
Take more than
ammunition.
time to heal.
What did I said it wrong? Some wounds take, oh, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. That's right. This your stuff. Let me say it right then. Some wounds take more than time to heal. That's not what I said. I'm
You
sorry.
said take more time. And
Thank
yeah, the
you.
chapter is saying that it
Take
takes more than
more
time.
than time. You're
Right.
right. And that is significant when you read that. Careless ammunition, mama's bait. Ooh, that one. And you know what? Our house was never a home. That was something that one got me a little bit too. Closets full of secrets and unhappiness. Woo. Running scared. Her trauma caused my pain. Oh, muzzled into silence is one of the. Okay. Okay, no wonder that stood out to me because I'm like, muzzled into silence. Okay. Um, my pain caused her trauma. Now, and I like that you actually didn't put them side by side. You're talented. You're very talented in your structure of this book. Cycle of trauma, disrupting the narrative, fighting to change the narrative, mirroring the narrative, escaping smoke to be scorched by flames. I like that one too. Oh, I like them all.
I
I think
do.
I said that every time I read one. I'm like, oh, this is my favorite one right here. Then I go to the next, like, oh my God, this one. Searching for perfection, yet creating despair. The ramifications of toxic comfort. Ooh. Broke my heart and healed my soul. My soul was a recognizable stranger. Your titles, like these titles, beautiful flowers covering ugly bull.
Look, I'll say it. Ugly bullshit.
There
Ugly
you
bullshit.
go. Yeah, listen. Well, when I read it, that's how I read it. Inhaling truth, exhaling chaos, pain, and fear. Unraveling family ties. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. Ooh, I highlighted that one. Breathing again. Learning how to love. Mustering the resolve. Cleansing the old, anchoring in the new. Home was chaos until I chose to move away. And then the last one was from trauma to transformation. Then, of course, the letters of release and healing. And then you write four of the best letters. I'm like, oh my God. But that first letter, oh, Jesus. My goodness, that letter was very, very, very well written. You did a great job on this entire book.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Overcoming the Drug Addiction I Never Had, written by none other than Tasha Denese. This is my beautiful friend. We've been
Thank you. Thank you.
yakking
Thank
about
you.
this book for almost right up on 2 hours, and I have not hated 1 minute. I've loved every second of it. I honor you and I thank you for your gift of time to share with the public.
I thank you for
I
doing
never
this.
pay
I
attention to
appreciate
current
you.
audiences because I know that it's going to now go out and there will be people that you would never have been able to touch to reach that will now have an opportunity to gather this information. I'm looking forward to massive orders of this book for groups for that are looking for help, health, and healing. I really am. looking for that. I'm looking for other opportunities for you to come and sit and talk with people. So obviously, you want to get this out on your social medias platforms. I'm inviting anyone that would see this. Feel free, please, to share this on your
Yes,
outlet. You
please
never
share.
know. There
Share,
might
share, share.
be someone who actually needs to hear this, who needs to have access to this book, to this information, to this truth. This is a real life story of a person. This is her right here, Miss Tasha Denese Bellamy. She is a new author, and she has come out with a banger. I mean, she stepped out with her guns loaded, and she is telling the story, her story of her trauma, but more than that, of her triumph. And that makes me happy. And so I'm grateful. She always keeps telling me, don't feel bad for that little girl. But I am moved by what that little girl went through, but I'm just as moved by who you are today. I
Thank you.
among some of the most amazing women that I know. I am so thankful to the God that I serve to know you. And I'm grateful that we have a past enough to see who you really are and what you've come through. And it just makes you even that much more phenomenal to me. That's the truth. I don't
Thank you. Thank you.
the word
I
BS.
love you so much.
I don't
Don't
talk
make me cry. Don't make me cry.
no, but this is my truth. I don't waste my time or energy, especially my words. If you heard my Sunday school this morning, I realized how valuable our words are. Our words are God's
Right.
breath breathed. And so I don't want to waste my words. So when I use them to speak, I don't use them to kill, I use them to give life. And so that's why I want to help you breathe life into this work that you put out. And so and I
I
pray
appreciate
that
you so
my words
much.
breathe life into you. Don't stop, run, go forward, keep pushing the button, go the green button, just keep going. Don't let anything get in your way. Keep your focus on the girl who keeps looking back at you in the mirror, because even in the hardest
Absolutely.
times, she never failed you. She never failed you.
Right.
We cannot do anything about, and that's why when I say it is what it is, I don't mean it in a negative way, but I mean, like, even with all of that, I cannot change who other people are.
Right.
I can
Right.
but I can work the heck out of who I am. I can
Right.
work me. And
Right.
I'm watching you. You've given us now the opportunity to watch you from your past in writing to who we are. You are here in the flesh. I see you, pretty girl. I see you. And we see you. If there's any truth to the saying, you know how you hear people say, you don't look like what you've come through.
Whew.
You don't look like what you've come through. You don't at all. I read the story and I actually know you. And I'm like, that's why it bothers me, because I'm like, golly, I did not know this. But then our own dear friend, our mutual friend, Sharon, who we both grew up with too, she said she did know some of those things. And her compliments to you and her accolades to you speak to the parts that she knows how to know that you survived.
Right.
Um,
Sharon was one of very few people, well, two actually. Sharon, and you remember Debbie Walker.
that was I
God
that,
rest her
that
soul.
was my
Right.
best friend at one time in our
Yeah.
life, and I know that you and she were
Mine
also
as
very,
well.
very
Right. We
close.
were very close. Debbie
Yeah.
lived right underneath me in Jones Walker.
Yep.
Um, Debbie and Sharon were the only two people I allowed up them stairs. And
Wow.
even when they came in, I was on my way out. I was like, nope, because
Yeah.
at any given time,
Yep.
something was going to go down.
Yeah.
I was like,
So
ain't
yeah,
nobody
but
coming
it
here.
makes sense because I can remember, like, it was always us talking from the porch. Like you
Right.
I would when I think, like, when you say that, I remember, like, it was, and I don't even think anything negative about it. I just, now I remember, like, I can just remember you. I can remember a particular day, Tasha. I can tell you exactly what you had on. You had on this, like, powder bluish kind of, I want to say it was kind of almost like what I used to call a baby doll dress. It was like, in that time we did used to wear like the shirts that kind of like cropped right here, but then the dress came, it was like the little dress. And I remember that, and you had the curly hair all out because you were so pretty, and she had the good hair. She was, Tasha with the good hair. No, but sis, when I tell you, I remember, and so I'm so I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful that you chose to survive. I'm
Yeah.
grateful because statistically, you should have, by statistics, taken the same path as your mom.
Right,
That's what
right. And
statistics
that's
say.
statistics say that, and a lot of people, unfortunately, even within my family, hoped for that, you know.
Jesus.
But
Whew.
I'm here. I
Yeah.
am here.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring that up about talking on the porch because I was talking to Rosalind
Okay.
Bass, right?
Yeah.
And Roz was telling me because she purchased and read the book, and she was just like, I remember you would never let me come upstairs. We would always stop right at the start of the stairs, and you'd just be like, okay, bye.
Yeah. No,
But I
I
mean,
remember
it's
that,
funny
like,
now.
just talking from up the stairs. I remember that, and but I never thought anything about it.
And honestly, I don't, it was just, I didn't realize I was doing that. You know what I mean? But I knew that wasn't nobody coming up them stairs.
Yeah.
Wasn't nobody coming in.
But you
Because,
know what? You were, even when you shouldn't have had to, you were still trying to protect other people from the hurt
right,
that you were experiencing.
right.
And I can relate to that. I can really relate to that. And again, girl, I just love you so much for that. I
I
thank you
love you
for
back.
being open and being willing to talk about it. What Even though we've talked for 2 hours, you've hit just a few highlights in the book. You really need to get the book so that you can
Please get the book.
hear
Please get
the
the book.
story. And I know that she would be
Not
more
for
than
me, but for
glad.
you. Get the book.
Yeah, you'll be more than glad for a group. I can't wait till you announce the first group that of people that want to order a group of book, a slew of books, so that they can use it in a structured setting
Setting.
for
Yeah.
working women or young girls that are going through. And I'm going to be praying to see how that happens, because there are group homes, there are shelters, and there are things where these things, we pull it out and we bring it over, but these people need to hear this. And I know I say women because I'm a woman, you're a woman, but there are men, there are boys
Right.
who go through the
That are
same thing.
battling.
And
Right.
that's really why I mentioned respectfully, and I pray that I was respectful about it, but mentioning your brother, because the outcome for him wasn't good,
Right.
and so hurt hurting. I mean, when you're hurting and you don't have an outlet,
Right.
it can take you down a very dark road. It can
Right.
take
It can be very detrimental. Very.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
please, I wouldn't promote it or push it if I didn't think it was worth it, or if I didn't think you would find that there would be value in it. But I encourage you to get the book. And then when you get it, let us know. So you never know what other projects could come up in regards to the book. You just don't know. So get the book, read it, and then let her know what you thought about the book. If you may
Please
have
let me
other
know.
questions in
Send me an
regards
email.
to the book. Yeah. So let me see. Sharon said on here, she said, your mother told me I was one of the ones that she couldn't run away. And I said, that's right, I'm not going nowhere. So Sharon had experiences that even I didn't have. So Sharon, we appreciate you, friend, for joining on this conversation with our good friend, the now known author Denese Bellamy. That's our friend, but she's also, I know, like, don't forget me when you get up into your little kingdom. Like when you make it into the starlights, don't you dare forget me.
Never that. Never that. Never that.
That I'm going to. I said I want to read this to you. I want to read some of this because I like to read. I really love to read. So I was like, I want to read this to you. So I'm gonna try to read. I might read the letter to him because to me the letter. If you read the letter, that's just gonna make you gotta read the book now. Girl, what is happening? But yes, girl, we've given 2 hours and 9 minutes to this.
Right, right, right.
I think it's time for us to close out. But again, Tasha, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And again, anybody listening, just if you have questions, please put it in the comments and I'll come back over the next few days and answer as many as I can. You can also send me an email, go to my website, tashadenese.com. Thank you all for being here. And Lorenda, thank you so much for doing this. I love you, girl. I love you.
I love you more.
Thank you, Sharon. I love you too.
Awesome. All right, girl.
All right.
So we're gonna sign off from here, and we will talk chit chat a little later. I'm
We
gonna go
shall.
here because I'm hoping my husband just walked in, so I'm hoping he brought me some food. I'm hungry.
Tell hubby I said hello.
I sure will. I will definitely tell him. Thank you again for this, and
You're welcome. Thank you.
we'll see what we can do a little later. But don't not let me know when you start blowing up. Let me know. Say, hey, girl.
Absolutely. You'll be part of that process. Trust.
All right, hon. I love you. Have a good evening, okay?
I
If
love
you
you
work
too. You
tomorrow,
as
have
well.
an amazing work week.
You as well. Thank you so much.
All right. More back to you.
Bye.